This is everybody's day. This is everybody's day.
What gave me? He said, son, in a season of darkness, that is the throne of prevailing. Because grace is actually God's advantage. And to the man who believes, God's advantage becomes his advantage. I'm going to say that again. Grace is God's advantage. The gift of grace is God gifting you, or God giving grace is God giving you his advantage. It's a combination not just of saving essence, but of supernatural ability. Actually, we should call them divine ability. That's what happens in grace. It started as God's advantage. One of the things that God possesses that puts him on a higher pedestal to the man that is relating with. But when God gives you his advantage becomes your advantage. And so you can walk through seasons that will have quenched you. Now your consciousness of your infirmity is no longer a problem. Peter knew that in himself, walking on water was not measured to men. Lord, if it be you, bid me to come. Come. And then he stepped out and began to work. He was practicing divinity because of an invitation. And that invitation swallowed the totality of his frailties. In the midst of doing the supernatural, he began to hear the sounds of the waves and saw how they were rolling. And then he began to experience once again the feelings of his incapacitation. What happened to him? He began to sink. Now, Peter, I know you are walking, but you are Emmanuel. You are Emmanuel. And he began to sink. And then he called out. Jesus reached out. The journey started back into the boat. We want to pray for a few minutes, and my question is, where did you stop? It's not wrong to sustain the feelings of your infirmities. Life will always bring us to that place where we are conscious of our existence as men, limited. I was doing a fresh research on Genesis 4:26 last week, trying to unlock the meaning of that word, enos. Enos at face value means mortal man. And when you use mortal, it means one that is susceptible to quenching. It can die. Now the word mortal there I saw has root words in weakened and lesser in stature. So what Seth saw was that after the fall, those who were birthed were lesser in stature to the original one that God formed. My son is not like his grandfather. That's what enos means. Lesser in wisdom, lesser in the capacity for fellowship, lesser in understanding, lesser in authority, lesser in command, lesser in creativity. All of those things began to define a man who was just one person away from the garden. Do you know how many people are between Adam and you? And every new one that came in successive births became weaker than Enos. Are you with me? So Adam stepped out, he gave birth to Seth. Seth was born outside the garden. He only heard stories. Then Enos came. He was just 2 distances away. I don't even know how many people are between you and Adam. I'm saying that what gave birth to us was weakness. And what gave birth to the weakness that gave birth to us was weakness. And so successive generations became weaker than the one before them. So if you count how many people are between you and Adam, it tells you how many drops into weakness that were made before you came. That's why that structure, that multi-purpose structure called the throne of prevailing was created for you. That no matter the distance that was covered between the first man who fell and to those who came after him, who were weaker expressions of his version, if you come there, your weaknesses will be swallowed up. You can survive anything. Maybe they told you that your great-great-grandfather was a womanizer. And just like God gets better in every generation, Satan also gets better in every generation. So he womanized and there were 3 women with him. And you heard that your great-grandfather had 5. Your grandfather had 12. Your father is battling with 15. You already know that you are in trouble. What if your forefather was Solomon? It means it's like you don't have hope in the flesh. Because those who came after him will have been worse than him. See all the generations that came to you. You don't have hope. And I want to reiterate that you don't have hope until you come to the throne. You don't have hope. But you can prevail. That your father begins to wonder, why is it that you don't like women? The response is simple. I arrived at the throne. Our bloodline didn't stand a chance. But when I got to the throne and I asked for grace, they gave me mercy. The atrocities of our bloodline could not deprive me. They forgave all that could stand against me. And they offered me what will make me different from those who came before me. Everyone that came before you had a track record of taking what did not belong to them. You came from a bloodline of thieves. And you started feeling the tendency to follow them. The invitation tonight is to approach unto a throne. You cannot win that battle until you arrive. That throne is not in heaven. No. That throne is what the Spirit of grace sits upon. That throne is closer to your heart than your mouth. It means it can be engaged in silence. No man is hearing you cry out in the face of temptation. A thought, Lord help me, can awaken the throne. We want to pray for like 4 minutes. And the cry is that throne will be activated for our prevailing. Whatever the strength of the adversary is, let the supply that is greater be occasioned tonight. The enemy has dealt blows. The enemy has released realities to overwhelm your soul. But there is a rock that is higher than high. And in this day that I am overwhelmed, I ask that you lead me. I come to the throne of grace that I may obtain mercy and find grace in this hour of need. I will not fall. Oh my. Ala como patado. Pramposka papolo foka patai. I know they wait to hear that he fell, but that sound will not be heard. For from the cradle to gray hairs, it is the Lord who carries me. I know they are waiting. They are waiting for me. They say he always preaches consecration. He always preaches sanctification. One day he will become guilty. It will not happen. Oh, they call him a preacher of righteousness. Soon he will be caught in the web of unrighteousness. I dare the enemy. It will not happen. I have arrived at the throne. I have been connected to God's facility that gives strength in the hour of need. I will be standing above temptation.